Grace Whittaker ripped the bonnet off her head and threw it into the Arizona dust at her uncle's feet. "If you're gonna sell me like a heifer, Uncle Silas, at least let the man see my face." The whole street went still. A rancher halfway up the saloon steps stopped cold, one boot on the porch, one in the street. His hand hovered above a leather purse heavy with silver. 19 years old, sir." Silas Boone stammered. Untouched, obedient. Grace lifted her chin. "I ain't either one, mister. Best you keep your money and ride on." Before we ride any deeper into Grace Whittaker's story, friend, go on and hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and promise me you'll stay with her all the way to the end. And down in the comments, tell me what city you're watching from tonight. I want to see just how far Grace's story has traveled across this big country of ours. Silas Boone's face turned the color of old brick. "You shut your mouth, girl. Or what? Or you'll what Uncle beat me here in front of God and half of Yuma County. You already sold my mama's wedding ring. You already sold her Bible. What's left to take? You." Grace flinched. "That's what?" Silas raised his hand. He never brought it down. A grip locked around his wrist, the rancher from the porch, the one with the leather purse. His eyes were winter river water even in July. "Mr. Boone?" "Mr. Calloway, sir, this ain't—" "Lower your hand. She's my kin. A man's got a right—" "Lower your hand." Silas lowered it. Nathaniel Calloway did not let go of his wrist. "Reckon you and me and the young lady ought to have our conversation somewhere that ain't the street." "Yes, sir." "Miss Whittaker, if you please." Grace stared at him. 3 years since anybody had called her miss. 3 years since she'd been anything but Silas's girl, Silas's burden, Silas's to trade. "I'll walk my own self, Mr. Calloway." "Didn't reckon otherwise, ma'am." She picked her bonnet up out of the dust and walked inside with her chin higher than either of their hats. The back room smelled of spilled whiskey and old smoke. Silas tried to sit down. Nate did not. "Keep standing, Boone." "Yes, sir." "Miss Whittaker, you sit if you like." "I'll stand too." "Suit yourself." Nate set the leather purse on the table. He did not open it. "Boone, you told me outside and I want it said plain in front of her. You got a debt with me." "Yes, sir." "How much?" $240, sir." "For what?" Silas swallowed. "For the 8 head of cattle I borrowed." "Stole." "Borrowed, Mr. Calloway, sir. I had full intent to—" "Stole." "Yes, sir. Stole." Grace turned her head so slow it was almost adrift. "You what, Uncle?" "Girl, this ain't your—" "You stole 8 cows from this man, and you come dragging me down Main Street like I'm the apology." "Grace, I swear on your mama's—" Don't you put your mouth on my mama." Nate lifted one hand gentle, the way a man quiets a horse. "Miss Whittaker, let me finish with him, and then I'll answer to you." "Fair." Grace set her jaw. "Fair." "Boone, you came to my ranch a week past. You said you didn't have the money. You said you had something better. You remember what you said?" "I'd rather not." "Say it." Silas looked at the floor. "I said I had a niece." "Say the rest." "I said she was 19, healthy, knew her letters, could cook some." "Say the rest, Boone." Silas would not. Nate said it for him. "You said if I didn't take her off your hands, you'd walk her up the stairs at the Copper Queen this very night and hand her to Mr. Tyree for whatever price he'd pay." Grace made a sound. It was not a word. "Boone, look at her." "Mr. Calloway, please. Look at your brother's child and tell her you said it." Silas looked. "I said it." Grace sat down, not because her legs gave, because if she did not sit, she was going to pick up the inkwell on the table and drive it through her uncle's eye. "Uncle Silas." "Gracie. Don't Gracie me. Don't you ever Gracie me again. Child, you was gonna hand me to Tyree. Only if a better buyer didn't come along." Silas had no answer. "That's what I am to you. A head of livestock you was fixin' to walk up them stairs. Gracie, you don't understand the fix I'm in. I understand perfect. She stood back up. She wiped her hands on her skirt like she'd touched something foul. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am. How much is in that purse? $240. Exactly the debt. Exactly. Not a cent more. Not a cent, ma'am. So I ain't been sold. I been swapped. Nate's jaw moved. Ma'am, I don't rightly know what to call it. I know what it ain't, and it ain't a thing I'm proud of. Then why? Beg pardon? Why'd you pay? You could have took my uncle to the law. You could have took back your cattle. Why'd you lay down $240 for a woman you don't know? Nate was a long time answering. Because if I walked out of this saloon without you, ma'am, I knew where you'd be tomorrow. And I knew I'd have to live the rest of my life knowing it. Grace stared at him. That ain't a reason a decent man gives a woman. No, ma'am, it ain't. It's the reason a guilty one does. Nate did not flinch. Yes, ma'am, it is. Silas tried one more time. Mr. Calloway, sir, if the lady's agreeable, we can have the parson down the street do the vows before sundown, make it proper, and— No. Grace and Nate said it together. They looked at each other. Silas blinked. I don't follow. Nate turned on him slow. Boone. You're gonna take this purse. You're gonna pay back every dollar you owe me, and you are gonna put every penny of what's left into a bank draft drawn in Miss Whitaker's name, and she is gonna carry it out of this town in her own hand. Do you hear me? Sir, there ain't nothing left after the debt. Then you'll sell that sorry mule of yours and make up the difference. Mr. Calloway. Today. Silas went white. Grace went whiter. Mr. Calloway, she said, what is it you're offering me exactly? A ride, ma'am. A ride where? Wherever you want to go. You didn't pay $240 for a ride. No, ma'am. I paid it so your uncle wouldn't walk you up them stairs tonight. What happens after that is your business, and I'll not lay a finger on it. Grace studied him like she was reading a letter she could not yet believe. You got a home, Mr. Calloway. I got a ranch, ma'am, north of here up past the Gila Fork. You got a wife there? A pause. I had one, ma'am. She passed 2 winters back. You got children? A longer pause. 3, ma'am. 3. Samuel 10, Ben 7, Lily 4. Grace closed her eyes. And you come down here to collect a cattle debt, and you wound up with me. Yes, ma'am. Do those children know you're coming home with a woman? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Because I don't aim to come home with one. I aim to come home with a passenger who I'll set down wherever she tells me to be set down. Grace opened her eyes. You got the makings of an honest man, Mr. Calloway. That, or the finest liar I ever met. Reckon the Lord and time will tell you which, ma'am. Silas signed the draft with a hand that shook like a fall leaf. Nate folded the paper once and held it out to Grace. Miss Whitaker, yours. She did not take it yet. Uncle Silas. Gracie, look at me. He looked. If I see you again in this life, I will cross the street to the other side. If you knock on my door, I will not open it. If you lay dying in a ditch and call my name, I will walk on. You understand? Grace. You understand? I understand. Say my name proper. Miss Whitaker. Go. Silas went. The door swung closed behind him and did not swing again. Grace took the draft then. She folded it into the bodice of her dress, where a locket used to live, before Silas sold that too. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am? I'll take that ride. Yes, ma'am. Not to your ranch. No, ma'am. But as far up the north road as you're going. Yes, ma'am. After that I'll find my own way. Yes, ma'am. We understand each other. We do, ma'am. He picked up his hat. He did not put it on till they were out the door. Nate helped Grace onto the buckboard seat by offering his hand palm up, the way a man offers a hand to a lady. not the way a man takes hold of property. She noticed. She said nothing. He climbed up on his side. He clucked once. The mares moved. Yuma fell behind them like a bad dream, a body's glad to wake from. For the first mile, neither of them spoke. For the second mile, neither of them spoke. In the third mile, Grace said without turning her head, "I may be poor, Mr. Calloway." "Ma'am?" "I said I may be poor, but I am not livestock." Nate was quiet, a long breath. "No, ma'am, you ain't. But this world treats women worse than cattle some days, and I ain't yet figured out how to fix it." "You payin' for one don't fix it." "No, ma'am, it don't." "Then why'd you?" "I told you why." "Tell me again." "Because I couldn't live knowing where you'd be tomorrow otherwise." Grace turned her face to him for the first time since they'd left the saloon. "Mr. Calloway, I want to ask you something, and I want the answer straight." "Ask it." "Did you come to town today meaning to buy a wife?" "No, ma'am. I came meaning to collect a debt and ride home by supper." "Swear it." "On my wife's grave." "Don't swear on a dead woman. Swear on something livin'." "On my children, then." "That'll do. I didn't come for a wife, Miss Whitaker. I don't want a wife. I had one. She was the best thing I ever earned and the worst thing I ever lost, and I got no room in me for another. Not this year, not next, maybe not ever." "Good. Good. Because I don't want a husband. I don't want a man. I don't want a ring, a house, or a promise. I've seen what men's promises are worth in this territory, Mr. Calloway, and I'd sooner build my life on creek water." "Yes, ma'am." "You understand." "I understand." The mares walked. The sun climbed. "Mr. Calloway." "Ma'am?" "Your children." "Yes, ma'am." "Who's with 'em?" "My foreman's wife, woman named Hetty, comes over from the next place when I ride out. Her own young'uns are grown. And when you ride home today without a wife but with a woman on your bench seat, what's this Hetty gonna say?" Nate's mouth did a thing that was not a smile. "She'll say plenty, ma'am. None of it quiet." "And the town?" "The town'll say plenty, too. And your boys." He did not answer that one. "Mr. Calloway." "I don't know, ma'am. I don't know what they'll say. Samuel, my oldest, he's angry most days. Angry at the Lord for taking his mama. Angry at me for not stopping it. He sees me ride in with a strange woman, I reckon he'll be angry at her too." "Then set me down before we get to your ranch." "Ma'am, set me down at the last town before your place. I'll take a room. I'll wait on the next stage east. You won't have to answer for me to your boy." "Miss Whitaker." "Yes." "There ain't a last town before my place. There's my place, and there's the Calloway Road, and there's 40 miles of nothing between. The stage don't run north of the fork till Thursday." "What day is it today?" "Monday." "Oh." "Yes, ma'am." "So I sleep where?" "On my ranch, ma'am. In the room that used to be my wife's sewing room. Alone. With the door that locks from the inside. With my word that no man on that place will cross the threshold." "Your word." "My word." "And on Thursday?" "On Thursday, I'll hitch up this same wagon, and I'll drive you to the fork myself, and I'll put you on the eastbound stage with that bank draft in your bodice, and every dollar I can spare in your hand besides." Grace was quiet. "Mr. Calloway?" "Ma'am, you're a strange man." "I've been called worse, ma'am." "I ain't saying it's a bad strange." "No, ma'am, I didn't reckon you was." They rode on. Grace pulled the bonnet back over her hair, the same bonnet she had thrown in the dust not 2 hours ago. Funny thing about a bonnet. A body can hate it and still need it. "Mr. Calloway." "Ma'am?" "Tell me about the little one." "Lily." "Lily." Something moved in Nate Calloway's face. The first thing Grace had seen move there that wasn't duty or shame. "She's 4, ma'am. She don't remember her mama. Not really. She'll say she does. She'll say mama smelled like lavender and sang her a song about a bird in a pear tree. But the truth is her brother Ben told her that, and she's held it in her mouth like a candy ever since." "What song?" "Ma'am, the song." About the bird in the pear tree. I don't rightly recall all of it. Mary used to sing it while she worked. Mary was your wife? Yes, ma'am. Mary Calloway? Yes, ma'am. Tell me one line of the song. He thought. He thought a long while. Little bird, won't you stay? Winter's comin', and I'm alone. That ain't about no pear tree. No, ma'am, it ain't. Then Ben made the pear tree up. Reckon he did. For his sister. Reckon he did. So she'd have something sweet to remember. Nate's hands tightened on the reins till the leather creaked. Yes, ma'am. Grace looked at the road a long time. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am, that is the saddest thing I've heard in a year, and I heard some sad things. Yes, ma'am, it is. They came over a rise. A valley opened. A long, low house. A barn. A windmill turning slow. A smudge of a figure running across the yard with a dog beside it had to be Ben. A larger figure on the porch who did not run, did not wave, only stood, had to be Samuel. A tiny figure in a faded yellow dress peeking from behind Samuel's leg had to be Lily. Nate drew the mares up at the top of the rise. He took off his hat. He held it in his lap. Miss Whitaker. Yes? I don't know. You don't know. No, ma'am. I don't know what to tell 'em. I've been thinking the whole ride, and I still don't know. I reckon I'll tell 'em the truth best as I'm able. I reckon I'll tell 'em you're a good woman who was wrong today, and I'm giving you shelter till Thursday and no more. I reckon I'll ask 'em to treat you kind. And if they don't— Nate put his hat back on. Then they don't, ma'am, and we'll get through to Thursday anyhow. Grace looked down at the valley. She could not have said later why she did what she did next. Maybe because the yellow of Lily's dress was the same yellow her own mama had once sewed for her when she was 5. Maybe because Samuel stood on that porch the way a boy stands when he's already decided the world is going to hurt him, and he is going to be ready. Maybe because Ben was running with a dog the way children run when they still believe in things. Maybe because she was tired. Maybe because she was not yet tired enough. Grace Whitaker straightened her back on that wagon seat. She smoothed her skirt. She tucked a loose curl of hair back under the bonnet she'd thrown in the dust. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am. Drive on. Ma'am. Drive on down. Yes, ma'am. He flicked the reins. The mares started down the rise, slow and steady, toward the long, low house, toward the boy on the porch, toward the child in the yellow dress, toward a doorway. Grace Whitaker had promised herself only 3 days ago she would never again walk through for any man alive. And still she went. The dog reached the wagon first. A thin yellow hound, all ribs and tongue, who put his paws up on the wheel and looked at Grace like he'd been waiting for her his whole life. Ben came up behind the dog and stopped dead in the dust. Pa? Son? Who's that? Come on up to the porch, Ben. I'll tell you and your brother and your sister together. Pa? Son? Why you got a lady in the wagon? Nate did not answer. Ben did not move. The dog wagged. Grace, before she could think better of it, reached one gloved hand down over the side of the wagon. Hello, boy. The hound licked her glove. Ben watched the hound lick the glove like he was watching a betrayal. Pa. Ben said quieter. Banjo don't lick strangers. Well, Nate said, he licked this one. On the porch, Samuel had not moved 1 inch. Not when the wagon came down the rise. Not when it pulled in. Not when his father climbed down. Not when the strange woman climbed down. He stood with one hand on the porch post, and his jaw locked so tight a body could have struck a match off it. Lily peeked out from behind his leg. Pa. Baby girl. You brung a lady. I did, sweet pea. Is she our new mama? Samuel's hand came down on Lily's shoulder hard. She ain't. Samuel, Nate said. She ain't, Pa. Don't you tell Lily she is. Samuel, I ain't told her any such thing. Let me speak. No, sir. Son. I said no, sir. The 10-year-old's chin was shaking, but his eyes were not. Grace had seen that exact face on a boy her own age back in Tennessee, the winter his daddy got shot for a hog, and she knew then that nothing she said for the next month was going to reach past those eyes. She tried anyway. "Samuel, don't you say my name. Samuel, your father brung me here because I know why he brung you here. The whole county knows why he brung you here by sundown. You can stop talking, ma'am. You can stop talking right now." "Samuel Calloway," Nate said. "That is enough." "No, sir, it ain't." And the boy walked inside and slammed the door so hard the porch nails complained. Hetty Boone, no relation to Silas, Nate clarified under his breath. The first time Grace flinched at the name was waiting in the kitchen with flour to her elbows and an opinion already loaded. "Well?" "Hetty." Well, Nathaniel Calloway." "Hetty. This is Miss Whitaker. Miss Whitaker, Hetty Boone, my foreman's wife, who is the nearest thing I got to a sister on this earth and who will say exactly what she thinks in about 4 seconds. 3. Nathaniel, you rode into Yuma this morning to get 8 head of cattle back off Silas Boone, and you rode out with a girl in a blue dress." "Yes, ma'am." "Explain." "I will. Now." "Yes, ma'am. In the front room, without the children." "The children are already planning a war, Nathaniel." "I know it. The middle one is under the kitchen table right now listening." A small scuffle sounded from under the table. "Ben," Nate said. "Come out." "No, sir." "Ben." "I ain't here, Pa." "Son?" "I'm invisible." Grace knelt down. It surprised her as much as it surprised the boy. She did not make a habit of kneeling for anybody. "Ben? I ain't here." "I know it." "Then why you talking to me?" "I'm talking to the table." A pause. "What you sayin' to the table?" "I'm saying the table don't have to worry. I ain't stayin' long. Thursday I'm gone. The table can tell whoever's under it." Another pause. "Table says thank you." "Tell the table you're welcome, Miss Whitaker," Hetty said dryly, wiping her hands. "And come help me with these biscuits before Nathaniel starves a family of 5 on nerves." The biscuits burned, not all of them. Grace had made biscuits every Sunday of her life from the age of 9, and she was not a woman who burned biscuits. But Hetty's stove ran hotter on the left than the right, and nobody warned her, and the first pan came out black on the bottom, like a row of little coffins. Samuel smelled the smoke from the front room. He came into the kitchen. He looked at the pan. He looked at Grace. He said loud enough for his father to hear in the next room, "Mama never burned a biscuit in her life." Grace set the pan down on the stovetop very slowly. "You're right, Samuel. I know I am. I bet your mama was a fine cook." "Don't you talk about my mama." "I'm agreeing with you, son." "I ain't your son, and you ain't fit to agree about her." Nate's voice from the front room, "Samuel." "I'm just saying the truth, Pa." "Samuel, you come in here." "I'm eatin' supper." "Now." The boy went. Hetty waited till he was gone. "Miss Whitaker." "Yes, ma'am." "You cried yet today?" "No, ma'am." "You gonna?" "No, ma'am." "Good. Not in front of that one. He'll remember it for 10 years and use it." "Yes, ma'am." "Now help me scrape these black bottoms. A burnt biscuit ain't a ruined one. It's just a biscuit that's seen a harder road." Grace looked at her. "Ma'am, are we talking about biscuits?" "No, Miss Whitaker. We are not." Hi. Supper was the longest 40 minutes of Grace Whitaker's life. Samuel ate without lifting his eyes. Ben ate under the table. Nate had given up on that battle around the second biscuit. Lily ate half a biscuit and stared at Grace like Grace was a creature out of a picture book. Nate said grace. He said it the way a man says a thing he has said 1,000 times and has not meant in 2 years. "Lord, bless this food. Bless these hands. Bless this house. Amen." "Amen," Hetty said. "Amen," Ben said from under the table. Lily said, "Amen, and bless the lady too." The fork stopped halfway to Samuel's mouth. Lily. Samuel. You don't bless her. Why not? Because she ain't ours. Pa blessed her by bringing her. Pa was wrong. Nate set his fork down. Samuel. I said it. Step outside, son. No, sir. Step outside. No, sir, I will not. You step outside if you want to holler at me. I am eating my mama's chair at my mama's table, and I ain't moving for a stranger. Ben, under the table, started to cry small, hitching breaths that a boy only makes when he is trying very hard not to make any. Lily looked at her brother, then at her father, then at Grace. And Lily, 4 years old, with a smear of biscuit on her cheek, climbed down from her chair, walked around the table, and put her small hand on Grace's sleeve. Don't cry, lady. I ain't crying, honey. You gonna? No, baby. I ain't. Samuel's mean. Samuel's hurtin'. Is that the same? Grace looked at the little girl a long second. Sometimes, sweet pea. Sometimes it's the very same. Samuel shoved his chair back so hard it hit the wall. He was gone before the chair stopped rocking. Nate found him in the barn. Grace knew because Hetty told her in the kitchen, and because the voices carried through the open window above the wash basin where Grace was drying a plate she'd dried twice already. Samuel. Leave me. No, sir. Pa. Son. You bought her. Samuel. The town is saying it. Mr. Pike was in the feed store this morning. He told Bobby Teague, and Bobby Teague told Ezra, and Ezra told me when he come for the mail. He said you paid Silas Boone $240 cash in the Copper Queen Saloon for a girl, and he said any man who does that ain't a widower no more. He's a was Samuel. He's a buyer. That's what Mr. Pike said. He said my pa is a buyer. Grace set the plate down. Hetty behind her went very still. In the barn, Nate's voice was low and even, and the kind of quiet that comes before a killing. Judah Pike said that. Yes, sir. In the feed store, in front of Bobby Teague. Yes, sir. About your mother's husband. Yes, sir. Son. Sir. I will handle Mr. Pike. Yes, sir. And you will never again in your life repeat what Judah Pike says about your father as though it is a thing that is true. Do you hear me, boy? Silence. Do you hear me? Yes, sir. Say it. I hear you, Pa. Now come here. And whatever happened in that barn, Grace did not see. But she saw Nate come back into the kitchen 10 minutes later with his hat in his hand, his eyes red, and a boy of 10 walking 3 steps behind him with a face that had cracked down the middle and been pressed back together wet. Samuel walked past Grace without looking at her. He stopped at the foot of the stairs. He turned. Ma'am? Yes, Samuel. You burnt the biscuits. I did. Tomorrow the stove is hotter on the left side. Thank you, Samuel. He went upstairs. Grace did not cry. She had promised Hetty, and she did not. But she gripped the edge of the wash basin until her knuckles went white as the plate in it. That night, Nate lit a lamp in the sewing room himself. He set it on the little table beside the bed that had been Mary's and was now for 3 nights Grace's. Miss Whitaker. Yes. I am sorrier than I know how to say. For your boy. For all of it. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am? Your boy ain't the worst thing that happened to me today. Your boy ain't even in the top 3. No, ma'am, I reckon he ain't. Go to bed. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am, who is Judah Pike? Nate turned in the doorway. Miss Whitaker, tomorrow, I will answer that question, and I will answer it full. Tonight, I do not trust my mouth to stop at the edge of the answer. Good night, ma'am. Good night, Mr. Calloway. He pulled the door shut. She heard the latch fall. She did not hear his boots leave the hall for a long time after. Good. The scream came at the 2nd hour past midnight. High, thin. A child's scream, and the kind that was not a nightmare trying to become a word, but a word that had already been spoken over and over for longer than the screamer had been alive. "Mama!" Grace was out of the bed before she remembered she was in a stranger's house. "Mama!" She was in the hall before she remembered she was not welcome in it. She was at the boys' door before Nate was, because Nate had to come from the other end of the house, and a father's feet on a wooden floor are heavy where a girl's bare feet are not. "Mama!" She pushed the door open. Ben was sitting up in his bed with his arms wrapped around himself and his eyes open and not seeing. Samuel was in the next bed, awake on one elbow, watching his brother with a face that had been watching his brother do this every night for 2 years. Samuel saw Grace in the doorway. "Get out!" "Samuel! Get out! He's scared. He's my brother. I got him." "Samuel! I said I got him." And Ben, through the scream, through the tears, through the strange thickness children get in the throat, when fear has its hand there, Ben said, "The pear tree lady." Everyone in the room stopped. "Ben," Samuel said, "the pear tree lady, the one in the song. Mama said the pear tree lady would come." "Ben, it's Miss Whitaker, it ain't. Mama said." Grace knelt by the bed, slow, the way she had knelt for the kitchen table, not reaching, not touching, hands where the boy could see them. "Ben?" "Yes, ma'am." "You want to tell me about the pear tree lady?" Mama sang it. Little bird, won't you stay?" And the pear tree lady comes and she sits and she don't say nothin', she just sits until the bird ain't scared no more. "That's a good song, Ben. Are you her?" "No, honey, I ain't her. Can you be her tonight?" Samuel made a sound like a bone breaking. Grace did not look at Samuel. She looked at Ben. "I can sit, Ben, till you ain't scared no more. That much I can do." "You don't have to say nothin'. Not one word, honey." "Okay." She sat on the floor beside his bed, back against the wall, hands in her lap. She did not sing. She did not know the song. She did not reach for him. She just sat. Nate stood in the doorway. He did not come in. He watched her sit. He watched Samuel turn his face to the wall so nobody would see what was happening to it. He watched his middle son's breathing slow from the jagged thing it had been to the shape of sleep. After 20 minutes, Ben was under again. After 30, Grace got up as silent as she had come. She passed Nate in the doorway without a word. She passed Samuel's bed without a word, though she saw his shoulders were shaking and his face was to the wall. In the hallway, Nate caught her wrist, not held, only touched, and let go. "Miss Whitaker." "Yes." "Thursday." "Yes." "We agreed Thursday." "Yes." "I ain't asking you to stay past Thursday." "I know you ain't. But if Thursday feels too soon for any reason at all, you tell me. You hear?" Grace looked up at him. "Mr. Calloway." "Ma'am, who taught that boy that song?" "Mary." "And after Mary died?" Nate's throat worked. "Nobody, ma'am. Nobody taught it again." "Well, ma'am, somebody's gonna have to, or that boy is gonna scream every night of his life till he is a man, and he is going to be a man who cannot sleep." "I know it." "Well, Miss Whitaker. Thursday, Mr. Calloway. Thursday stands. Good night." Samuel did not come down for breakfast. Ben did, and sat under the table and reached up without looking, and took a biscuit off the edge of Grace's plate, not Hetty's, not his father's Grace's, and pulled it down into his cave. Nobody remarked on it. Lily came down in the same yellow dress as the day before, with her hair in a nest a dog would have been proud to have built. "Lady?" "Good mornin', Lily." "My hair's bad." "Your hair is fine." "Samuel says it's bad. Samuel says I look like a thistle." "Samuel's wrong this mornin'. Can you fix it?" Grace looked at Hetty. Hetty looked at the stove. "Lily," Grace said, "go find me a comb." The little girl came back with a comb that had not been used in 2 years. It still had a long dark hair caught in its teeth. Grace picked the hair out careful as if it were a living thing, and she set it on the windowsill without a word. Then she combed the child's hair. Lily hummed a tune, 4 notes, over and over. Lily. Ma'am? What's that you're hummin'? Mama's song. You know the song. I know the notes. Ben knows the words. We put 'em together sometimes, but Samuel don't let us no more. Grace's hand slowed in the child's hair. Why don't Samuel let you? Because Samuel says if we sing Mama's song, then Mama is really gone. And if we don't sing it, then she's just gone to town. For a long time. The comb stopped. From the top of the stairs, a voice said low and rough, Lily, hush. Samuel was on the landing, barefoot, in the shirt he'd slept in. His eyes were red, and his hands were at his sides in fists, and Grace did not know how long he'd been standing there. Samuel, Grace said. I told her not to sing it. Samuel, honey, come down and eat. I ain't hungry. You are. I ain't. Samuel Calloway. It was not Grace. It was Hetty from the stove without turning around. You come down and eat the breakfast that was made for you, or you go out to the barn and help your father pull a calf, but you do not stand on my staircase and boss a 4-year-old child about her own mother's song. Do I make myself understood? A long silence. Yes, ma'am. Then choose. Barn. Go. He came down the stairs. He did not look at Grace. He did not look at Lily. He did not look at anybody. But as he passed the table, his shirt, the left sleeve, the one Grace noticed because it was at her eye level, had a tear in it. A bad one. Running from the elbow to the cuff. Old. Not a thing torn today. It was his mother's mend. Grace could see the line of it. Mary had sewn that sleeve up once, and the stitches had finally given, and nobody in this house had sewed it up again. Samuel went out. The door closed. Grace watched the door a long time. Hetty? Miss Whitaker, does this house have a needle? It does. Thread? It does. Where? Top drawer of the sideboard. Thank you. Miss Whitaker. Yes. What are you fixin' to do? Grace looked at the door Samuel had gone through. I am fixin' to do a small thing. Hetty and I would thank you not to name it out loud. Because if it gets named, the boy will tear the shirt again on purpose, and I have only got till Thursday. Hetty turned from the stove for the first time that morning. She looked at Grace Whitaker. She looked at her a long while. Miss Whitaker? Yes. You said Thursday. I said Thursday. What? Nothin'. Hetty. I said nothin', girl. Go sew the shirt. The boy leaves it on the hook inside the barn door when he works. He won't see you take it. He won't see you bring it back. Thank you. Miss Whitaker. Yes. The stove is hotter on the left. I know. The well rope frays quick in this heat. Check it before you draw. I will. And the road to town passes Judah Pike's south fence. Do not walk that road alone. Not on any day. Not for any reason. Grace's hands, which had been reaching for the sideboard drawer, stopped. Hetty. Yes. Who is Judah Pike? Hetty did not turn around this time either. Miss Whitaker, when Nathaniel is ready to tell you, Nathaniel will tell you. Until then, you sew the shirt, and you comb the girl's hair, and you sit by Ben when he screams, and you stay off the south road, and you mark what I say about Thursday. What about Thursday? Just mark it. The needle was in the top drawer of the sideboard, right where Hetty had said. The thread was there too. 3 colors, one of them, the exact faded blue of Samuel Calloway's torn shirt. Grace threaded the needle on the first try. Out in the yard, a boy of 10 was walking toward the barn with his back straight and his fists still clenched. Out past the barn, past the far fence, past the dry wash where the summer grass had already gone. The color of an old bone. A rider Grace had not yet met was standing on his own porch with a pair of field glasses to his eyes, watching the Calloway ranch. Watching the wagon that had brought the woman in the blue dress. watching the woman herself as she moved past the kitchen window with a needle in her hand. Smiling. The shirt came back to its hook in the barn before Samuel came in off the fence line. Grace did not say a word about it at supper. Neither did Samuel. But at breakfast on Wednesday, she caught him turning his left arm toward the window light, squinting at the men she had made along the seam. He caught her catching him. He went red from his collar to his hairline. He said nothing. Grace said nothing. Ben under the table said, "Samuel's shirt ain't tore no more." "Hush, Ben." "But it ain't." I said hush. "Grace did it." "I know she did it, Ben." "Hush." That was the first time he had said her name without a Mr. or a Mrs. in front of it, and he said it like it was a splinter he was trying to work out of his own thumb. Judah Pike rode up to the Calloway gate at 10 in the morning. He did not come to the house. He sat his horse at the wooden rail, and he called once loud the way a man calls who does not want to dismount on another man's dirt. "Calloway." Nate came out of the barn with a rope in his hand. "Pike." "I'll not come in." "I didn't ask you to." "Just neighborly business." "Speak it." "My south well is dry, Calloway." "Sorry to hear it." "My cattle are thirsty." "Sorry to hear it. Your East Creek still runs." "For now." "I'd like to water on it." "No." "Just for a week." "No." "Calloway, that's a hard word for a neighbor." "You ain't my neighbor, Pike. You're the man whose fence is next to mine. That ain't the same thing." Judah Pike smiled. He had a smile like a split in dry wood. "Heard you brought a woman home Monday." Nate's rope hand did not move. "I heard you paid cash for her." Pike: "I heard a lot of things, Nathaniel. A whole lot of things. Some of 'em interestin', some of 'em well. A man in your position, widowed 2 winters, 3 little ones in the house, and then all of a sudden, a 19-year-old girl in a blue dress climbing down off your wagon." Pike: "Folks will talk is all I mean to say." Pike: "Listen to me." "I'm listening." "My boy came home from the post office with what you said at the feed store Monday in his mouth. My boy, 10 years old." "Well?" "You said it in front of a child." "I said it in front of Bobby Teague. If Bobby Teague carried it to your boy, that ain't—" "You said it knowing it would reach my boy. Don't you lie to me on my own fence, Pike. Don't you stand there and lie to me." Judah Pike's smile got a little wider. "Nathaniel, I'll tell you what I'll do. You let me water on your East Creek. I'll tell the town I was mistaken about the girl. I'll tell 'em she's your cousin. Distant cousin. Visitin' from back east. I got a voice in this county, Calloway. I can tell it one way, or I can tell it the other." Silence. "What do you say, Nathaniel?" "I say ride off my gate, Judah, before I do a thing I'll have to answer for." "Is that a no on the water?" "That is a no on every word you have ever said to me in your life." Pike did not stop smiling. He turned his horse. He said over his shoulder, just loud enough to carry, "Pity about that dry grass on your west section. One lightning strike, and the whole thing'd go up like paper. Good morning, Calloway." And he rode. Nate stood at the rail a long while after the dust had settled. Grace watched him from the kitchen window with Samuel's mended shirt folded over her arm. She did not know yet what Judah Pike had said. She only knew that Nathaniel Calloway's shoulders, when he finally turned and walked back to the barn, looked like the shoulders of a man who had just heard the word that would later be the name of his ruin. That afternoon, the sky went the color of a bruise. No rain in it. Only heat and that yellow-green underside that old hands on the plains watched for and prayed against. Hetty came into the kitchen without knocking. "Nathaniel's ridin'." "Where?" "West pasture. He's moving cattle off the dry grass. He don't like the look of that sky." "How long?" "Till dark, maybe longer. He took the 2 hands and the foreman. There ain't a man on this place till mornin'." Grace set down the bowl she was holding. "Hetty." "Yes." "Judah Pike." Hetty's face did a thing. "Nathaniel ain't told you yet." "He ain't." "Then it ain't my story to tell, child." "Hetty, please." Hetty sat down at the table. She set her hands flat on the wood. She looked at her hands like they were a map she was trying to read. Judah Pike wanted Mary. What? Before she was Mary Calloway, before Nathaniel. Judah Pike wanted her. Asked for her hand twice. Her daddy said no twice. She married Nathaniel in the summer of '61, and Judah Pike has not forgiven the Calloway name for 16 years. Hetty. When Mary took sick, the fevered Judah Pike rode up to this house and offered Nathaniel $1,000 for the ranch. Said he knew Mary was going. Said a widower couldn't run a place this size alone. Nathaniel threw him off the porch with his own 2 hands, and Mary died the next Tuesday, and Judah Pike has been waiting 2 years for this family to crack. And you walked into this house on Monday, Miss Whitaker, and gave him the crack he's been praying for. Grace closed her eyes. Hetty. Thursday. I know, girl. Thursday I'm gone. I know. Tell him I'm gone. Child. Tell him. When he gets in tonight. Tell him I'm on the stage Thursday morning and he'll never hear my name again. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I am so sorry. Miss Whitaker. Look at me. Grace looked. You stay and don't help that boy. You go and don't neither. Judah Pike is coming for this ranch whether you are on it or in Kansas City. Do you understand me? No. Then listen close. Because today with that sky is the day he has been waiting for. And I want you in this house till Nathaniel rides back in. You do not walk to the garden. You do not walk to the well past dark. You keep those children inside these walls. Do you hear me? Hetty, you're scaring me. Good. Samuel came in at 5 with a face like a thunderhead of his own. Where's Pa? West pasture. When's he back? Dark. I'm riding out to him. Samuel, you are not. I am. Samuel Calloway. You ain't my mother. And there it was. The sentence that had been in his mouth since Monday, finally spoken out loud in Hetty's kitchen with Ben under the table and Lily on the rug, and Grace standing at the stove with a wooden spoon in her hand. Samuel, Hetty said, I said it. You did. I meant it. I'm sure you did. I meant it, and I'll say worse if I have to. She is not my mother. She is a woman Pa paid for. My real mother was not paid for. My real mother wore a blue dress the day she married Pa, and it was her own dress, not some dress a uncle stuffed her into so he could sell her in a saloon. My real mother was Samuel. Was a Christian woman, and Samuel, that is enough, son. And she did not have to burn biscuits to prove she could cook. Grace set the spoon down. She walked across the kitchen. She did not raise a hand. She did not raise her voice. She knelt down in front of the boy the way she had knelt for the kitchen table 2 nights before. Samuel. Don't. Samuel, you listen to me now. I don't have to listen. You listen because I am leaving tomorrow morning at dawn, and you will never see me again, and I will say this one thing before I go. Your mother was the finest woman ever to stand in this house, and I have heard it from every mouth in it but yours. I did not come here to take her place. I am not taking her place. Nobody has ever taken her place. Not tomorrow. Not 10 years from tomorrow. Not when you're a grown man with your own wife. Your mother's place is kept, Samuel. It is kept. Do you hear me? The boy's chin was shaking. I hear you. Your father did not pay for me. He did. He paid my uncle's debt. My uncle was going to sell me to a worse man for a worse purpose. Your father kept me from that. That is what happened, Samuel. That is the whole of what happened. Whatever Judah Pike is saying in the feed store is Judah Pike's lie and not your father's sin. Samuel's eyes went wide. How do you know that name? Hetty told me. Hetty. Hetty by the door did not look up. I told her, Samuel. She's leaving tomorrow, and she had the right to know why the town is talking. Samuel looked from Hetty to Grace and back to Hetty. Something in his face, some final small thing came loose. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Samuel. You're really going. I'm really going. Then I'm sorry I said what I said about the biscuits. I forgive you, son. Don't call me son. I forgive you, Samuel. Okay. And he walked out this kitchen door into the yard and stood by the rail with his forehead against the wood, and he cried for 2 years of dead mother and fatherless nights, without making one sound, because Samuel Calloway had learned young that tears a body could hear were tears a body could use against him. Yeah. The first lightning struck at 6:40. Not rain lightning, dry lightning. The kind that comes down out of a yellow sky and touches the grass and walks off laughing. Grace was on the porch calling Samuel in when she saw it hit. Far off. West section. Half a mile past the barn. For one breath, she thought it hadn't taken. For 2 breaths, she thought it hadn't taken. On the 3rd breath, the grass bloomed orange. Samuel. I see it. Samuel, go in the house. I see it. I see it. Samuel, get your sister. Get Ben, get in the house now. Grace, the wind. I know the wind. Samuel, go. The wind was east. It had been east all afternoon. Hetty had said so once in passing, the way a woman mentions the weather. East wind meant the fire was walking toward the ranch, not toward the house, toward the barn. The barn where Ben had gone 10 minutes ago to say goodnight to the calf he'd been bottle feeding since April. The barn where Lily had followed him because Lily followed Ben, the way a shadow follows a shape. Ben. Hetty, the children. Grace, wait. The barn. Hetty, the barn. Grace, the roof. But Grace Whitaker was already off the porch, barefoot, in the blue dress, across the yard in a run that had nothing of a lady in it, and everything of a mother, though she was nobody's mother and would not be. Ben, Lily, Ben, answer me. Grace. Samuel's voice behind her cracking. Grace, the wind, it's comin' fast. Samuel, go back to the house. No, I'm comin'. Samuel Calloway, you go back to that house. They're my brother and sister. Go. And the boy stopped because a woman he had told 2 hours ago was not his. Mother had just spoken to him in a voice his mother used to use, and his feet obeyed before his heart could catch up. Grace hit the barn door at a dead run. The smoke was already inside. Ben! Coughing from the far stall. Lily, Lily, honey, Miss Grace, I can't. Ben, where are you, baby? The calf won't come. He's scared he's... Ben, leave the calf. But, Ben, leave the calf, where is Lily? Behind me, she's behind me, she's... Grace went to her hands and knees. The smoke was black above, cleaner below, and she went under it like a woman going under water. Lily. Lily Calloway, you say my name, baby. Grace. Where are you, sweet pea? Here. Keep talking. Here, 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 here. Grace crawled toward the word. She found the child curled against the back wall of the stall with her thumb in her mouth, and her eyes enormous, and her yellow dress gone gray with ash. Come here, baby. The calf. Let the calf be, honey. Come to me. My leg. What about your leg, baby? Board fell. Grace reached, felt. A plank had come down from the loft. It was on the child's ankle. Not heavy, but enough. She moved it. Lily did not cry. Lily never cried. Hetty had said so once. The littlest Calloway was the bravest Calloway, Hetty had said. She watched her mama go, and she never cried once, and it was the saddest thing Hetty had ever seen in a child. Grace picked her up. Ben, I got Lily. I'm comin' back for you. Take her out. Ben, you come with me. I can't. The calf's rope is stuck on my foot. Miss Grace, I tried to get loose. Ben, do not panic. I am comin' back. The roof above the hayloft let out a sound like a tree cracking. Grace ran. Out the barn door, across the yard, eyes streaming, lungs burning. Hetty was halfway across the yard toward her with her apron over her face, and Samuel right behind, and Grace shoved the child at Hetty before Hetty could reach her. Lily, take her! Grace. Ben is in there. Take her, Hetty. Grace, the roof. I know, Hetty. And she turned and ran back. Samuel screamed her name. Grace. Samuel, stay with Hetty. Grace, no. Stay with Hetty, Samuel, that's an order. She did not know why she said order. She was not his mother. She was not his anything. But the word came out of her like it had been waiting its whole life for the boy on the other end of it. And the boy. The boy stopped and did not follow, and Grace Whittaker went back into the fire. Ben's foot was not tangled in a rope. Ben's foot was pinned. A crossbeam had come down from the loft in the last minute, and it had come down across his shin, and he was pinned beneath it like a deer under a fallen tree, and he was not crying because Ben Calloway had also been taught that tears a body could hear were tears a body could use. Ben. Miss Grace. We are gonna get you out, baby. It's heavy. I see it's heavy, honey. I can't feel my foot. That's all right, Ben. That's the beam pressin', not the bone. You hear me? You hear me, Ben? Yes'm. She got her shoulder under the beam. It did not move. She got her back under the beam. It did not move. She got both hands under it, and she braced her feet on the stall wall, and she pushed, and somewhere in her chest a thing she had been holding since she was 9 years old. The exact year her daddy died, and Silas Boone moved into her mama's house, came up out of her throat in a sound that was not a scream, and was not a prayer, and was perhaps both. The beam lifted. 2 inches. Ben, pull. I'm pullin'. Ben, pull, Ben. His leg came free. She dropped the beam. She grabbed the boy. The barn door was a rectangle of orange now, and the air above them was not air. She carried him the way she had carried her baby brother out of the Tennessee flood in 1869, which was the last time her arms had known what this kind of carry meant, and her arms remembered. She went through the door. The hayloft came down behind her. She did not turn to look. Samuel was the first to her. He was running, and he was screaming, and he was a 10-year-old boy, and he was not trying to hide one single thing on his face anymore. Ben. 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 I got him, Samuel. Ben, you open your eyes. He's opening 'em, Samuel, look. He's opening 'em. Grace. Samuel. Grace. Grace, your dress. She looked down. The hem of the blue dress was on fire. She sat down in the dirt, and she did not remember deciding to sit. Her legs had decided for her. Samuel was beating at the hem of her dress with his bare hands, and she was trying to tell him to stop because he'd burn his palms, and he was not listening, and she realized she did not have the breath to tell him anyway. Hetty was there, throwing a horse blanket, water from the trough. Grace heard the sizzle before she felt the cool. Lily? Grace said. Is Lily? Lily's fine, child. Lily's fine. She's on the porch. She's watching you. She's fine. Ben. Ben's breathing, honey. Samuel. Samuel's right here, Grace. Samuel is right here holding your hand. Grace turned her head. Samuel Calloway was holding her hand. Both hands. With both of his. Tight. The way a child holds on to a thing he has decided against all his own promises to love. Samuel. Don't talk. Samuel, your hands. I don't care about my hands. Samuel. Grace. Grace, you went back for him. You went back in. I had to, baby. Don't call me baby. All right? Call me baby. All right, baby. And Samuel Calloway, who had not cried where a living soul could see it since the morning of his mother's funeral, bent his forehead down onto Grace Whittaker's shoulder and wept like a creek in spring thaw. Hoofbeats hard from the west. Nate Calloway came off his horse before the horse had stopped. Hetty. Hetty the barn. Children are out, Nathaniel. The children? All 3, Nathaniel. All 3. Grace went in. Twice. She got both of 'em out. Nate stopped. Looked at Grace. Looked at Samuel on her shoulder. Looked at Ben on the ground with Hetty's apron balled under his head. Looked at Lily on the porch, thumb in her mouth alive. Looked back at Grace. Dropped to his knees in the dirt beside her. Miss Whittaker. Mr. Calloway. Your hand. What about my... She looked down. Her left palm was black. She did not remember that part. Oh. Miss Whittaker. Mr. Calloway, your boy is cryin'. I see he is, ma'am. He ain't stoppin'. He don't have to, ma'am. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am? Thursday. Ma'am? Thursday I was going to go Thursday. Ma'am? Mr. Calloway, I do not believe I can walk to Thursday. Nate Calloway lifted Grace Whitaker in his arms, as careful as a man lifts a thing he has been entrusted with, and is afraid to break. Then you don't walk to it, ma'am. I was supposed to. Thursday will wait, Miss Whitaker. Thursday will wait as long as you need. The fire. I see the fire, ma'am. Your barn. I see the barn, ma'am. Your boys. I see my boys, ma'am. Mr. Calloway. Hush now, Miss Whitaker. Mr. Calloway, your west pasture. Pike said he said one strike and the whole thing. Nate stopped. On the far rise past the burning barn, a single rider sat on a pale horse with his hands folded on the saddle horn. Watching. Not moving. Not riding to help. Watching. Nate Calloway looked at the rider on the rise. The rider on the rise lifted one hand, slow, in a kind of greeting, and turned his horse, and rode. Hetty. Yes, Nathaniel. Take Miss Whitaker inside, lay her on the settee, send Samuel for the doctor in Three Forks on the fast bay, tell him ride, and don't stop. Keep Ben awake, keep Lily close. Where you goin', Nathaniel? Nate Calloway did not answer her. He walked to his horse. He pulled his rifle from the saddle scabbard. He checked the load. He mounted. Samuel on the ground beside Grace saw his father turn the horse toward the rise where Judah Pike had just ridden off. Pa! Son. Pa, don't. Samuel. Pa. Pa, she needs you in the house. Nate Calloway looked at his eldest boy. He looked at Grace Whitaker in Hetty's arms. He looked at the rifle in his own hand. A long, long second. Then Nathaniel Calloway put the rifle back in the scabbard. He got off the horse. He walked to Grace. He bent down. He picked her up again. He carried her to the house without a word, and far off past the smoke, past the rise, past the fence line, where a man on a pale horse had just disappeared. The first cool wind of evening moved through the dry grass, and did not bring rain, and did not bring mercy, and did not bring an ending. Only a waiting. Grace woke to the sound of a 10-year-old boy arguing with a doctor. You ain't putting that on her. Son stepped back. That's lie. I smelt lie on my pa's hand the year the wire cut him, and he hollered for 2 days. Son, I am the doctor, and I will... You ain't touching her till pa says. Samuel. The name came out of Grace's mouth before she knew she had a mouth. Dry, small, but it came. The room went still. Grace. Samuel. Let the doctor work. He was gonna put lie. He wasn't, honey. That ain't lie. That's carbolic. It's supposed to sting. Let him work. Grace. Samuel. I'm all right. You ain't all right. Your hand ain't all right. Your foot ain't all right. The whole bottom of your dress is burnt off, and Hetty had to... Samuel Calloway, hush. He hushed, but he did not leave her side. Not when the doctor cleaned her palm. Not when he wrapped her ankle. Not when Nate Calloway came in with his hat in his hand and a face the color of old paper and stood at the foot of the settee without speaking. Doc. Calloway. How is she? Burns on the left hand, 2nd degree, some on the right. Ankles sprained, not broke. Smoke in the lungs, but she's coughing clean. She's a lucky woman. Lucky. Lucky Nathaniel. And the boy. Ben's leg'll bruise black for a month. Bones whole. He's sleepin'. The little one. Lily ain't hurt at all, Nathaniel. Not a scratch. She's in the kitchen eatin' cornbread and holdin' the kitten. She's fine. Nate closed his eyes. He stood there with his eyes closed for the longest count Grace had seen a grown man go without opening them. Doc. Nathaniel. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank her. The doctor left at midnight. Hetty slept in the rocker by the settee. Samuel slept on the rug at Grace's feet, with his hand still wrapped around one of her fingers, like he was afraid she would float off in the night. Nate sat at the kitchen table in the dark, with a rifle across his knees, and did not sleep at all. At the first gray of morning, there were hooves on the road. Not one horse. 4. Nate stood up. He crossed to the window. What he saw there made him set the rifle down on the table very slowly, because his hands had started to shake, and he did not trust them on a trigger anymore. Hetty. Hetty came awake the way ranch women come awake. Nathaniel. Wake Miss Whitaker. Gentle. What is it? Territorial Marshal. 2 deputies, and Judah Pike. Grace was on her feet before Hetty finished saying the word marshal. Miss Whitaker, child, you cannot stand on that ankle. I can stand for a marshal, Hetty. Grace. Hetty, where's my shawl? Girl, you will not. Hetty. Where is my shawl? Hetty brought the shawl. Samuel was awake now too, rubbing his eyes, pulling at his father's sleeve. Pa, what's happening? Samuel, go sit with your brother. Pa. Samuel, I am asking you as a man to sit with your brother. I will explain every word later. Go. And Samuel, who had learned somewhere in the last 6 hours the difference between being told and being asked, went. Nate opened the door before the marshal's knuckles could reach it. Mornin', Marshal. Mr. Calloway. Coffee's on. Your deputies are welcome. Mr. Pike is not. Calloway. Marshal, he is not welcome on my porch, on my dirt, or in my doorway. He can speak to you from the rail, or he can speak to you from the road. He does not cross my threshold. The marshal, a broad man gray at the temples, with a face that had seen a great many mornings like this one, nodded once. Pike, rail. Marshal, I got assigned. Pike, rail, or I'll sit you on it. Pike went to the rail. The marshal stepped inside. Grace was standing in the front room with Hetty's shawl around her shoulders, and her left hand wrapped in white linen, and her bare feet on the floorboards because she could not get a boot on over the bandage. Ma'am. Marshal. Miss Grace Whitaker. Yes, sir. Daughter of the late Thomas Whitaker of Gibson County, Tennessee. Niece to one Silas Boone, currently of Yuma, Arizona Territory. Yes, sir. Ma'am, Mr. Pike out there has ridden to Three Forks and sworn an affidavit. He alleges that on Monday past Mr. Nathaniel Calloway did transact with your uncle Silas Boone in the Copper Queen Saloon, paying the sum of $240 in exchange for your person. He further alleges that the said transaction constitutes unlawful traffic in a woman under the territorial statutes of 1864, and he has petitioned that you be removed into protective custody pending investigation. The room did not breathe. Marshal? Ma'am? Do I understand you correct? I believe you do, ma'am. Mr. Pike wants me taken out of this house. Yes, ma'am. Into his custody. No, ma'am. Into the custody of the territorial court, but Mr. Pike has offered his home as lodging during the pending of the marshal. Ma'am, I will die on this porch before I cross to that man's horse. The marshal did not flinch. He had not become a marshal by flinching. Miss Whitaker, I ain't here to carry you anywhere. I am here to hear your account. The law don't move on Pike's word alone. It moves on yours. Grace sat down in the nearest chair because her ankle had given out, and she did not want the marshal to see. Then I'll give my account, sir. Take your time, ma'am. I don't need time. Monday last, my uncle Silas Boone, having already spent my mother's Bible money and my mother's ring, told Mr. Nathaniel Calloway that if Mr. Calloway did not settle a cattle debt by taking me off his hands, he would sell me that same evening to a man named Tyree in a room above the Copper Queen Saloon, for purposes I will not name in this house. Mr. Calloway paid the debt my uncle owed him. He took me out of that saloon. He drove me to this ranch. He set me in a locked room down the hall with his word that no man on the place would cross my door, and no man has. On Thursday, which is tomorrow, Marshal, he intended to drive me to the Fork and put me on the eastbound stage with every dollar he could spare. You confirm the sum was $240. I confirm it. Paid to your uncle. Paid against my uncle's debt, and the surplus laid by draft in my name. The draft is in Mr. Calloway's strongbox. I have not touched it. And Mr. Calloway did not, in any form by any word, require of you the duties of a wife. He did not. In any form. Marshal, he did not so much as sit to supper beside me until last night. And last night he was not at supper. He was in his west pasture saving cattle from the fire that Mr. Pike out there lit with his tongue 3 days ago. The marshal turned his head toward the window, toward the rail, toward Judah Pike. Ma'am, that is a serious accusation. Serious as a grave, sir. You have proof. I have Mr. Pike's own voice on my kitchen porch yesterday morning, sayin', and I quote as Hetty Boone heard him say, "Pity about that dry grass on your west section one lightnin' strike, and the whole thing'd go up like paper. I have a barn burnt to the sills. I have a 7-year-old boy with a beam mark across his shin. I have a 4-year-old with ash in her hair. And I have a man on your rail who sat on a rise while a child burned and raised his hand in a howdy. That is what I have, Marshal."
Teg.
Judah Pike's voice came through the open window. Marshal, that is hearsay from a servant woman, and the girl herself is not of a character. Pike. And you will find Marshal if you will consult the statute. Pike. The marshal's voice filled the porch. You will not interrupt a sworn statement from this doorway one more time. Judah Pike or I will remand you to the deputy for the ride back to Three Forks and Irons. Do I make myself clear? Silence. I said, do I make myself clear? Clear, Marshal. The marshal turned back to Grace. Miss Whitaker. Sir? Your uncle. Sir. Your uncle Silas Boone. What of him? He is also at Three Forks. He rode in last night. He is prepared to testify that he was coerced by Mr. Calloway into the exchange and that you yourself were an unwilling party at the time. Grace went white. Silas is there. He is, ma'am. Silas came back. Mr. Pike sent a rider to Yuma the evening of Monday last to fetch him, is my understanding. Paid his passage, put him up in the hotel, been feeding him for 2 days. Grace looked at Nate. Nate had not moved. Nate's face had gone the color of the iron in his own stove. My uncle. Yes, ma'am. My father's brother. Yes, ma'am. Is sittin' in a hotel in Three Forks, gettin' fed by Judah Pike, preparing to swear in a court of territorial law that I did not want to come to this ranch. That is the substance of it, ma'am. Well, Grace stood back up. She stood up on the ankle that had given out, and she did not sit back down. Marshal? Ma'am. Will a statement from me before you and your deputies, signed by my own hand, settle this matter? It will go a long way, ma'am. Then let us find your pen. Ma'am, your hand. I will sign with the hand I have left, sir. Mr. Calloway, bring the draft. Bring the ledger. Bring Hetty Boone to swear what Pike said on the porch. Bring your foreman to swear to the east wind. Bring Samuel because Samuel heard Pike's lie at the feed store. Bring every man on this place who saw me come out of that barn with your children in my arms. Miss Whitaker, bring them Mr. Calloway. I am done letting men decide the shape of my life in rooms I am not allowed in. Nate brought them, every one. Hetty first, who told of Pike on the porch, and quoted him word for word because Hetty Boone had a memory like a ledger book. Then the foreman, who swore to the east wind and to Judah Pike's boot prints on the fence by the west section dry grass, because he had tracked them that morning before the marshal arrived. Then Samuel Calloway, 10 years old, who stood in front of the marshal with his hands behind his back and said, Sir, 3 days ago Mr. Pike told Mr. Teague in the feed store that my father bought Miss Whitaker for a wife. I heard it said. I carried it home in my mouth. It was a lie, and I knew it when I said it, and I am sorry I said it in front of her. She run into a fire for my brother. She run in twice. A woman who is bought don't run into fires, Marshal. A woman who is bought takes the money and she goes. Miss Whitaker was not bought. My father did a thing he is ashamed of, and she did a thing she is not. That is the whole truth, sir, and I will sign it. The marshal looked at the boy a long second. Son? Sir. How old are you? 10, sir. Where'd you learn to speak like that? My mama, sir. The marshal nodded once slow. Your mama taught you well, boy. Yes, sir, she did. Deputy. Write it down, word for word. It took 3 hours. When the last page was signed Grace, with her right hand, because her left could not hold a pen. Her signature looking like a girl's, because she had not written right-handed since she was 4 years old. The marshal folded the papers into his saddlebag and walked out to the rail where Judah Pike had been sitting, getting smaller for 3 hours. Pike. Marshal. You will ride with me to Three Forks now. Marshal, you will ride with me to Three Forks. Now, Pike, and we will have a conversation about arson and about perjury, and about what a man pays to fetch another man from Yuma for the purpose of lying under oath in a territorial court. Get on your horse. Pike got on his horse. Before he turned it, he looked at Nate. He looked at Grace. He smiled the split-wood smile one last time. Calloway. Ride Pike. This ain't done. It's done. There's other courts, Calloway. There's other days. There's other fires. Ride. And Judah Pike rode with 2 deputies on either side of him and the marshal behind. The house was very quiet after they left. Ben was awake in the back room drinking broth. Hetty spooned into him. Lily was asleep in the rocker with a kitten on her chest. Samuel was standing by the front window, watching the dust settle on the road. Grace sat down on the settee because she could not stand anymore. Nate sat down across from her in the chair that had been Mary's. For a long time neither of them spoke. Miss Whitaker? Mr. Calloway. I owe you an apology. No, sir, you don't. I do, ma'am. I owe you an apology for Monday, for the draft, for the silence on the wagon, for bringing you into a war I knew was coming and did not warn you of, for every hour of fear you have spent under this roof, for my son's words at supper, for my own cowardice, ma'am, which dressed itself up as duty and walked you through my front door like it was mercy. Mr. Calloway. Ma'am. It was mercy. It wasn't, ma'am. Mr. Calloway. It was mercy. Flawed, shamed, ugly mercy. But mercy. A man who meant me harm does not pay my uncle in front of witnesses. A man who meant me harm does not put a bank draft in my bodice. A man who meant me harm does not hold my hand to help me onto a wagon seat like I was a lady. You did all 3. In 1 hour. On the worst day of my life. And I am tired of you apologizing for it. Nate's eyes were wet. He did not look away. Miss Whitaker. Yes. You have a choice in front of you, and I want it said plain, because I have learned in the last 3 days that nothing said plain with you is ever said wrong. Say it. Tomorrow is Thursday. The stage runs east at 9. I will drive you to it. The draft is yours. I have added to it. It is enough to take you back to Tennessee and buy you a small house and keep you 3 years without a man's help. Grace said nothing. Or you stay. Not as a wife, not as a hired girl. Not as anything but a woman who has a room with a lock and a chair at a table and children who would like her to sit in that chair. For as long as you choose. A month, a year, 10 years, or till next Thursday if that is what you choose. The choice is yours. Every day it is yours. I will never again in my life decide the shape of a day for you. He reached into his coat. He took out the draft. He set it on the table between them. The horse is saddled, ma'am. The wagon is hitched. My word on every child in this house stands. Grace looked at the paper. She looked at him. She did not speak. She could not yet. Into that silence came Lily. Small feet, thumb in her mouth, eyes puffy from sleep. Yellow dress, a clean one now. Hetty had burned the ash-gray one, and in her small dirty hand a rag doll with a face sewn in crooked stitches. Lady. Lily. Mama made this. I know, sweet pea. Mama made this before she went to town. Yes, baby. You take it. Lily. You take it, lady. Because if you go to town too, Mama will see it, and she will know which lady you are. Grace put her face in her bandaged hand. She did not make a sound. She did not have to. Into that silence came Ben, limping, white-faced, one hand on the doorframe, one hand holding a small book with a broken spine. "Miss Grace." "Ben, honey, you should be abed. I brung you something." "Ben, it's my book. It's the only book I got. It's got the bird and the pear tree song in it. Page 41. Mama wrote the words in the margin in her own hand. I want you to have it, ma'am, because the song don't work without the pear tree lady. And if the pear tree lady goes to the stage, then there ain't no song anymore, and I don't know what to do at night." Grace took the book. She did not open it. She held it against her chest like a thing she had been looking for all her life. "Ben." "Ma'am?" "I will sit up tonight. Whether I go or stay, I will sit up tonight. You call for me once. You do not have to scream. You call once." "Yes, ma'am." "Now get back in that bed." "Yes, ma'am." Into that silence last came Samuel. Samuel did not carry anything. Samuel had nothing to give. Samuel Calloway walked to where Grace sat, and he stood in front of her, and his hands were at his sides, and his chin was up, and his eyes were dry. "Miss Whittaker." "Samuel, I am not going to ask you to stay." "All right, Samuel. I am not going to beg. I am not going to cry. I am not going to make you feel bad about leaving. I am 10 years old, and I can stand on a porch and watch a wagon go. I done it once. I can do it again." Samuel. "But." "Yes." "But if you wanted." "Yes." "If you wanted." "Yes, Samuel." "Please don't leave Grace." 3 words. He got 3 out. The 4th was his mother's name almost, and he stopped it with both hands over his mouth, and he stood there with his eyes filling and his shoulders shaking, and one small boy's whole held-back life rising up in his throat. Grace Whittaker reached for him with the hand that was not bandaged. Samuel Calloway walked into her arm. He did not cry loud. He did not cry long. He cried the way a boy cries, who has decided at last that it is safe. Grace looked over his head at Nathaniel Calloway. Nate did not speak. Nate waited. "Mr. Calloway." "Ma'am." "The draft." "Yes, ma'am." "Put it back in the strong box." "Yes, ma'am." "I am not taking it." "No, ma'am?" "And I am not taking the stage." "No, ma'am." "Not tomorrow. Not Thursday. Not yet." "No, ma'am." "This ain't a promise, Mr. Calloway. This ain't a vow. This ain't a wife saying yes. This is a woman saying she will sit in the chair one more day, and the day after, and the one after that. And we will see." "Yes, ma'am, we will see." "Every morning I will decide again." "Yes, ma'am. And if ever I decide to go." "The wagon is hitched, ma'am, every morning of my life." Grace closed her eyes. She held Lily's doll in her bandaged hand. She held Ben's book against her ribs. She held Samuel Calloway, age 10, against her shoulder, and felt his tears soak through the shawl into the skin of her neck, and did not move to wipe them, because she had waited 19 years to be held onto by somebody who did not want to sell her, and she was going to let the boy hold as long as he needed. "Samuel." "Ma'am." "You hungry?" "Yes, ma'am." "Hetty left biscuits." "Yes, ma'am." "The stove is hotter on the left." "Yes, ma'am." "You gonna be all right, honey?" He lifted his face off her shoulder. His eyes were red. His chin was wet. He looked at her a long second. "Yes, ma'am." "Say my name." "Grace." "Good boy." And Grace Whittaker, who had come off a wagon in a torn blue dress 3 days before, sat in a chair in a house that had forgotten how to laugh and held 3 children who had forgotten how to ask and heard. Outside the window, the first slow rumble of a weather that had nothing yet to do with rain and everything to do with the long summer still ahead. The next morning, Grace came down the stairs on her own 2 feet. The ankle held. The palm did not. But Hetty had rewrapped it before sunup, and Grace carried the bandage the way a soldier carries a rank without apology. Samuel was already at the table. He did not look up when she walked in. He did not smile. He did not speak. But he had set out 4 plates instead of 3. Grace sat down in the 4th one without a word. He pushed the biscuits across. "Stove still hotter on the left, Grace." "I know it, Samuel." I done the right side so they wouldn't burn. Thank you, son. He almost flinched at son. He did not flinch. He reached for the butter. A week went by like that. Not easy. A week is not easy in a house that has just buried a barn and almost buried 3 children. But a week went. Ben's leg turned the color of a plum, and then the color of an old plum, and then the color of skin again. He limped into the kitchen every morning for his broth, and every night he called out once, not screamed, called. And Grace came and Grace sat and Ben slept, and Lily wore the yellow dress clean and the blue one clean and a green one. Hetty had made her, and she carried the rag doll everywhere, and every afternoon she climbed into Grace's lap and put her small thumb in her small mouth and said, "Sing it." "Baby, I don't know it." "Ben knows it. Ben can teach." And so, in the low light of the kitchen with Hetty stirring supper, Ben Calloway, age 7, taught Grace Whitaker, age 19. The words to his dead mother's song one line at a time, while his sister hummed the melody and his brother pretended not to listen from the front porch. Samuel listened. Samuel listened to every word. On the 4th day of the week, he walked into the kitchen while they were singing, and he did not tell them to stop. On the 6th day, he sang one line himself, very quiet, almost not a sound, and he looked at nobody when he did it, and nobody looked at him. On the 7th day, he sang the whole last verse. Word came from 3 Forks on the 8th day. A deputy rode up the road with a folded paper and touched his hat and handed it to Nathaniel Calloway at the rail. Nate read it twice. He read it a 3rd time. He walked into the kitchen with the paper in his hand. "Miss Whitaker." "Mr. Calloway." "Pike's been bound over." "Bound over." "For trial, arson, conspiracy, perjury." The marshal found kerosene cans behind his south barn. Same brand as what they pulled out of my west pasture. "Mr. Calloway." "And Miss Whitaker." "Yes." "Your uncle." Grace's hand stilled on the dishcloth. "Silas." "He broke, ma'am. He broke before the judge on day 2. He stood up in the witness box and he said he had been paid $50 by Judah Pike to swear you was coerced, and he said he would not swear it. He said the deputy wrote his words down, ma'am. I got 'em right here. He said, 'My brother Thomas Whitaker was the best man I ever knew, and I have spent 8 years shaming his daughter, and I will not do it one more day. And if the court wants to send me to Yuma prison for taking Pike's money, the court can send me because I deserve worse than Yuma.'" Grace set the dishcloth down. "Silas said that." "He said that, ma'am." "Silas Boone." "Silas Boone." "In a court." "In a court." "With people watching." "Ma'am, he is a broken man. He asked the judge for one favor. One. He asked if he might write you a letter. Just one letter. He said he does not expect an answer. He said he would not ask for one." Nate held out a second folded paper. The deputy brung it. Grace did not take it. Not then. She put it on the kitchen shelf behind the flour tin, and she did not look at it for 3 more days, and on the 4th day, she took it down and read it alone, and Hetty, who was in the yard pretending to gather eggs, heard her cry for the first time since Monday of the week before. What Silas Boone wrote in that letter, nobody but Grace ever knew. But on the day after she read it, she walked out into the yard with it folded in her bandaged hand, and she put it in the cook stove, and she closed the iron door, and she stood there a minute with her hand on the warm iron. Then she walked back into the kitchen, and she said to Hetty, "He was my daddy's brother. I know, child. He was the last of 'em. I know. That's done now. Yes, girl, that's done now." Pike's trial ran 2 weeks. The verdict came back on a Tuesday. Guilty on every count. 15 years at Yuma prison. The judge added from the bench that any man who would light a fire in a barn where children were known to play, regardless of whether he knew the children were inside, on that particular evening, had forfeited any claim on the mercy of the court or the sympathy of the territory. And Judah Pike would serve every day of his sentence, and the Calloway family would never again be troubled by his shadow on their land. Nate came home from 3 Forks on a Wednesday. He did not speak much at supper. After the children were abed, he stood in the kitchen with his hat in his hand, and he said, "Miss Whittaker, Mr. Calloway, would you walk out with me?" "My ankle." "Slow walk." "Where?" "Just to the fence, not far." She went. They stood at the fence a long time without speaking. "Miss Whittaker." "Mr. Calloway." 8 weeks today." "I know it. 8 weeks today since I come down that road with you on my wagon seat. I was countin'. Was you? Every mornin', Mr. Calloway, every mornin' I counted, and every mornin' I decided to stay another one. Ma'am. Yes, I got something to say to you, and I am gonna say it once, and if you say no, I will never say it again. And the offer I made you on the settee stands for the rest of your natural life. The wagon is hitched every mornin'. The draft is in the strong box with your name on it. None of that changes. Whatever I say next does not change it. Are we clear on that?" "We are clear, Mr. Calloway." "Grace?" "Yes." "The first time I took your choice?" "Yes. I paid a man in a saloon for you, and I drove you home, and I did not ask you one question, and I did not give you one door you could walk through on your own feet. I took your choice. Grace Whittaker and I have not forgave myself for it, and I do not expect to." "Nate." It was the first time she had called him that. His hand tightened on the rail. "This time. This time. This time I am askin'. Ask it. Will you marry me?" "Nate. Not to save your name. Your name is saved. Pike is in prison, and your uncle is in Yuma, and the territory knows who you are. Not to save my children. Hetty is here, and Hetty will be here, and my children are not a roof you are obliged to hold up. Not because you owe me. You owe me nothin'. You owe me less than nothin'. I owe you my middle boy's life, and my youngest girl's life, and my oldest boy's heart, which was cracked clean through and would have broken half if you had walked to that stage, and he knows it, and I know it, and you know it. But that is not why I am askin'. Then why? Because I have loved you since the afternoon you sewed Samuel's shirt, and did not ask me to thank you for it. Because I have loved you since the night you sat on the floor beside Ben's bed, and did not sing the song because you did not know it. Because I have loved you since you carried Lily out of that barn with the hem of your own dress on fire, and you did not notice until Samuel beat the flames out with his hands. Because I was a man who thought he had used up all the love the Lord gave him, and you walked into my kitchen in a blue dress you did not choose, and you showed me the Lord gives more than a man can use up. I did not ask to love you, Grace. I did not deserve to. I do anyway. And I would marry you tomorrow if you said yes, and I would go to my grave single if you said no, and I would be grateful for either day, because either day had you standing in front of me." Grace did not answer, not for a long time. When she did, her voice was small. "Nate?" "Ma'am?" "The first time in the saloon you paid for me." "Yes." "This time, I want to choose. That is what I am offering you." "No, Nate. I mean now. This minute. I want to say it out loud before you say anything else. I want to say it into the air. I want God and this fence and the both of us to hear it. Say it, Grace." She turned toward him. She put her bandaged hand still not fully healed, and it never would be fully. The doctor had said she'd carry the mark of that barn her whole life. She put it against his chest. "I choose Nathaniel Calloway. Grace, I choose you, on purpose. Knowin' every ugly thing about Monday 8 weeks ago. Knowin' your boy called me the woman Pa bought. Knowin' the town has called me worse. Knowin' my uncle sold me, and your neighbor burned your barn, and your children buried their mama. And I am 19 years old, and you are 38, and I have never in my life kept a house. And you have never in your life courted a woman the second time around. Knowin' all of it, Nathaniel, I choose. Grace?" "Yes, Nate." "Yes to what?" "Yes to all of it." They were married 3 weeks later. Not in a church. Grace did not want a church. Grace said she had spent too much of her life inside other people's buildings, and she wanted to stand under sky the day she said her own words. So they stood in the yard. The drought had broken the week before, broken hard 3 days of rain that turned the dust to mud, and the dry creek to a running thing, and the west pasture blackened from the fire into the first green shoots of something that might by fall be grass again. The preacher came out from Three Forks. Hetty and her husband stood up with them. The foreman and his 2 hands stood behind. Samuel held the ring. Ben held Lily's hand. Lily held the rag doll. And when the preacher said the words, and Nate said his, and Grace said hers, and the preacher said, "By the authority of the territory of Arizona and the grace of Almighty God, I pronounce you husband and wife." There was a long moment where nobody moved. Then Samuel Calloway, age 10, walked forward with the ring box still in his hand, and he looked at his father, and he looked at Grace, and he said, "Ma." One word. He had rehearsed it. Grace would learn later that he had been practicing in the barn for 6 days alone, where only the horses could hear, until he could say it without his voice breaking. His voice did not break. "Ma, Pa wanted me to give this to you." It was a silver locket. Mary Calloway's locket. The one thing of hers Nate had kept. Samuel opened it careful with a boy's careful fingers, and inside was a tiny lock of dark hair Mary's, and beside it on the other side, a new empty place. Pa said Mama would want another lady in it with her. He said the locket's got 2 sides for a reason. He said if you was willin'. Grace took the locket. She did not speak. She could not yet. Samuel did not wait for her to. He went back to Ben and Lily and took his sister's other hand, and the 3 Calloway children stood in a row in the yard in front of the mother they had chosen on purpose. And Ben Calloway, who had screamed for his dead mother every night for 2 years, said clear as a bell, "Welcome home, Ma." The rain came again that night, soft, not the hard kind. Grace stood on the porch in the dark with Nate beside her and listened to the water on the roof of the rebuilt barn. They had rebuilt it together, every man on the place in 2 weeks, because Nate Calloway had said he would not have his wife walk past a ruin the first day of her married life, and she said, "Nate, Grace, I ain't never been anybody's home before. You are now. I ain't never had one, Nate. You have one now. The first time I come up this road, I was a woman in a torn dress who had been bought in a saloon. Grace, the second time I come up this road, I will be a woman in a plain dress who was not bought by any man livin'. The second time. Tomorrow, Nate, I want to ride into Three Forks tomorrow, and I want to come back up this road as your wife on purpose, choosing it in daylight where anybody who wants to see it can." Grace Calloway. "Don't call me that yet." "Why not?" "Because I want to hear it the first time when the road turns and I see the house and I know I am coming home to it of my own free mind." Nate took her bandaged hand. He kissed the scar on her palm, where the beam had taken the skin. "Tomorrow, Grace. Tomorrow." And so, on a Thursday, which had always been the day 8 weeks before, when Grace Whitaker was supposed to leave the Calloway ranch forever, she came up the Calloway Road a second time, on a wagon, beside the same man, in a blue dress, not the one from Yuma which Hetty had burned, but a new one Hetty made in the same blue, because Grace had asked for that exact blue. "Nate, Grace, turn the wagon at the top of the rise." "Ma'am, I want to stop a second at the top of the rise where you stopped the first time." He stopped the wagon at the top of the rise. The house was below. The rebuilt barn pale wood against the green. The windmill turning. A smudge of a figure running across the yard with a dog Ben. A larger figure on the porch who was not standing stiff this time, who was waving both arms high, waving Samuel. A tiny figure in a yellow dress on the top step, holding a rag doll high over her head, like a flag lily. Grace did not speak for a long minute. "Nate." "Yes. The first time I come over this rise, I was prayin' to any God who'd listen to let me die before the week was out. I know, darlin'. This time I am praying to the same God to let me live to be 90, so I can see every one of them children have children of their own. He'll hear you, Grace. He heard me the first time. He did. He said no. He did. He was right to say it. Nate turned his head. He looked at his wife. He looked at the woman who had walked into his kitchen in a blue dress she had not chosen, and had walked back into it 8 weeks later in a blue dress she had. Grace Calloway. Say it again. Grace Calloway. One more time. Grace Calloway. Welcome home, ma'am. She smiled. It was the first full smile Nate had seen on her face. It went all the way up into her eyes. Drive on, Mr. Calloway. Yes, ma'am. He flicked the reins. The mares started down the rise, slow and steady, toward the long, low house, toward the boy on the porch, toward the boy running in the yard with a dog, toward the child in the yellow dress. On the top step, toward a doorway, Grace Whitaker had once promised herself she would never again walk through for any man alive, and she walked through it anyway. On her own feet, by her own choice. Home. Yeah. Out on the American frontier, in the long, brutal summer of 1876, a great many women were buried by the hardness of the land, and a great many more were broken quietly in the back rooms of saloons by men whose names the history books have not bothered to record. Some were sold for less than Grace Whitaker. Some were sold for more. Some were never sold at all, only given away by the people who were supposed to love them, for reasons no decent mind can hold for long. But once in a great while, in the dust of those dying cattle towns, a woman who had been handled like livestock rose up in a torn blue dress and looked a cruel world in the face and said, "I may be poor, but I am not a thing you can buy." And once in a rarer while, still there was a man on the other end of that sentence who had the grace to set down his money and pick up his shame and spend the rest of his days earning her back one honest morning at a time. Grace Whitaker was sold in a saloon on a Monday in July of 1876. Grace Calloway walked up her own road, a free woman, on a Thursday in September of the same year, and the ranch where she raised 3 children who called her Ma and buried her husband in his 92nd year, and died herself at 94, in the same bed she had first slept in as a stranger. That ranch stands on that land to this day, run by her great-grandchildren, and the locket that Mary Calloway left and Grace Calloway wore is in the hand of the oldest daughter of every generation, and the blue dress, mended and mended again, hangs in a glass case in the front hall. Because in that family, the women are taught from the cradle that a woman's worth is not decided by any man who ever held a purse, or any town that ever held a tongue, or any uncle who ever held a grudge. A woman's worth is decided by the woman. And Grace Calloway, née Whitaker, decided hers on a Thursday in September, on a rise above a long, low house in a blue dress. She chose her own self. That is the whole story. That is the end of it. And that is the truth.